Welcome to Auto Mundial, the weekly car news and review show where this week we're taking a look at the beautiful new Lexus LC Convertible. Is it a match for the BMW 8 Series?
We also have a new SUV from Buick and a new saloon car from Kia, the K5. Plus, the Ford Puma ST takes on Volkswagen's sporty T-Roc R.
And in case all of that wasn't enough, we have a limited edition roofless Aston Martin. That's all coming up. First though, the news.
Mercedes-Benz has reported a 27% increase in global sales between January and June of this year. Commercial vehicle sales were up by 37%, while passenger car sales increased by a quarter, with nearly 1.2 million cars sold around the world. One factor was the release of the new S-Class limousine with 21,500 units sold, while deliveries of plug-in hybrid and all-electric models more than quadrupled thanks to the likes of the EQC and the new EQA. However, like many manufacturers, Mercedes has said that deliveries are now being curtailed due to the global shortage of semiconductor chips that's causing problems throughout the car and tech industries.
We all know that China's car industry has gone from strength to strength in the last decade or so, now building more cars than any other country on Earth. In fact, in 2019, China produced more cars than the USA, Japan and Germany combined. And now, Chinese-built cars are finding their way into Western dealerships. This is the new Buick Envision. And while you may now be sat at home thinking we've lost the plot, the Envision is not actually an American-made car. It is, in fact, one of a number of Chinese-built cars from American brands that are shipped over to the States to be sold. This is nothing new. The old model had been built in China since 2016, but never proved to be very popular among buyers. This new car, though, has gone upmarket, part of Buick's efforts to become more of a premium brand. Under the bonnet sits a turbocharged 2-litre petrol motor producing a healthy 228 horsepower. Customers can opt for a 2- or 4-wheel drive with a 9-speed auto, the only gearbox option. Inside, the cabin looks somewhat last-gen for an all-new model, but it does come with all the equipment you'd hope for in a semi-premium SUV. It gets a decent infotainment system with built-in Alexa, as well as CarPlay and Android Auto. High-spec cars even get massage seats, and there are lots of tasteful leather and trim options. One thing to note for potential buyers, however, is the boot space. The Envision has shrunk slightly since the old car was discontinued, and cargo space has taken a hit. It's still comparable with the likes of the Audi Q5, but no longer a class leader. It's hard, though, to make a case for the Buick against much of its foreign competition. It doesn't excel in any particular area, something we've been saying about GM products for years. It is affordable, though, but so is the Kia Sorento, and that is a real class favourite.
In the ever-baffling world of SUVs, we've been treated to no end of expensive performance models. A particular favourite subgenre of the German manufacturers we've had, M, RS and AMG versions of just about every 4x4 they build. But now that need for speed is trickling down to crossovers, and this is the latest one. And the first thing you'll notice is that this is not a BMW, Audi or Mercedes. This is the new Ford Puma ST, and straight from the off, things look promising. It shares most of its underpinnings with one of our favourite hot hatches, the brilliant Fiesta ST. It gets the same 197 brake horsepower 3-cylinder 1.5 engine, not much by the standards of some fast SUVs, but it should be enough to raise a smile or two. Drive is sent to the front wheels only via a 6-speed manual transmission, making this more of a high-riding hot hatch than an SUV. The chassis also borrows lots of bits from the Fiesta. The whole car has been stiffened up, while the standard Puma's brakes have been upgraded and the steering rack is 25% quicker. There's also an optional limited slip diff working alongside a torque vectoring system to help pull the car around corners and eliminate understeer. Of course, this being a bigger car than the Fiesta and 100 kilos heavier, it isn't quite as fast. It's not bad though, hitting 62 miles per hour from a standstill in 6.7 seconds, 2/10 behind its smaller sibling. But a performance SUV is pointless if it can't do the things a regular one can. Thankfully, the ST is every bit as practical as the regular Puma, with an enormous boot and plenty of passenger space. And of course, the Puma ST has had a sporty makeover. There's a new front splitter adding 80% more downforce, and the rear wing and diffuser at the back, which we suspect aren't quite so effective. They look cool though, giving the car a much more purposeful look. The interior has also been updated with various bits of sporty trim and ST badges dotted around. The excellent infotainment from the regular Puma is present and correct too, completing the ST's everyday appeal.
But what if you want a sporty little crossover that's more SUV than hot hatch? Well, this is the new Volkswagen T-Roc R, and it seems to take itself quite seriously. It's over £10,000 more expensive than the Ford, so what do you get for all that extra cash? Well, it certainly looks the part. The T-Roc has always been an attractive car, but the R looks even better thanks to its redesigned bumpers, rear diffuser and new LED daytime running lights. It sits 20mm lower than the standard car and comes with some fabulous 19-inch alloys. It does a good job of looking low and sporty, but still noticeably chunkier than any Golf or Polo. Inside, there are fewer changes, however, with the standard T-Roc's disappointing interior remaining largely unchanged. There are a few R badges dotted around and some nice sporty seats, but the cheap-feeling, scratchy plastics remain. It's all a bit dark and gloomy in the cabin, and while it can be lifted slightly by the optional colourful trim inserts, they look and feel cheap, and certainly not something you want to be seeing and touching every day. What it does get, though, is more power. 99 more horses than the Puma, to be precise. Those extra ponies are also helped along by an all-wheel drive system, meaning the little Volkswagen can hit 62 miles per hour from rest in a staggering 4.8 seconds.
But while the T-Roc R is undeniably rapid, it's the Puma that we'd find ourselves being drawn towards. It's good-looking, practical, good value, and most importantly, a crossover that petrolheads can really enjoy.
Recently, it seems just about every supercar manufacturer is getting in on the limited special editions. And to be fair, we can't blame them. If there are brand loyal customers who are willing to spend a fortune on a lightly modified version of the car they already own, then why shouldn't companies cash in? And the trend at the moment seems to be roofless speedsters. We've seen the Ferrari SP1 Monza, the McLaren Elva and the Bentley Bacala, to name a few. All of them use existing platforms and rebody them without a roof. And now it's Aston Martin's turn with this, the V12 Speedster. A bit of a parts bin special perhaps, the Speedster follows on from the Vantage Roadster, so you might imagine it shares its AMG-derived V8. However, what actually sits below that long sculpted bonnet is the same 5.2 litre V12 that you get in the DB11 and DBS Superleggera. That means 691 brake horsepower in a car no bigger than a Ford Focus. The 0 to 62 time is predictably impressive, 3.5 seconds, but top speed is limited to 186, presumably to somewhat protect its coiffured occupants. But if we're completely honest, this car's performance doesn't really matter. People will be buying it for 3 reasons: the noise, the exclusivity and the looks. Starting with the noise, that massive V12 should more than check that box, especially with that pair of exhaust pipes poking through the massive diffuser. And only 88 will ever be built, so it certainly has exclusivity on its side compared with the 500 Ferrari Monzas and 149 McLaren Elvas. And then there are the looks. Aston Martin's styling department has been smashing it out of the park of late, and this is perhaps its best looking car in years. It has vantage proportions with the wheels pushed out into the corners and short squat overhangs. Inspiration has been taken from some of Aston Martin's old racing cars, as well as jet fighters. The 2 occupants are separated by a narrow piece of bodywork flowing towards the 2 rear bulges, under which sits a pair of bespoke helmets. Prices start at an eye-watering £765,000, but as is often the way with cars like this, it could turn out to be a great investment.
After the break, Kia's stylish Camry rival and a new convertible Lexus. Coming up, a convertible Grand Tourer from Lexus, but first.
With the Kia Optima getting rather long in the tooth, Kia has come out with a new mid-size saloon for the North American market to eke out the last sales in the sector before SUVs complete their takeover. Called the K5, it's modern, filled to the brim with tech, and let's be honest here, really quite cool. In a class dominated by Toyota Camrys and Nissan Altimas, the K5 really does look a lot more appealing with its flicked daytime running lights and low menacing front end. And the good looks continue to the back too, where you'll find a full-width rear light inspired by the Stinger, but bolder and some smart chrome trim. Step inside and the smart interior more than lives up to the car's good looks. It's laid out simply, but it remains a very classy cabin with plenty of wood trim and leather options. It gets a leather wrapped steering wheel too, and a big 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster with different themes to choose from. Crucially, the K5 is as practical as anything else in this class. There's plenty of luggage space, and taller adults will be perfectly comfortable travelling in the back where you find plenty of legroom. On the infotainment front, as standard, you get an 8-inch touchscreen, with higher spec cars getting a bigger 10.25-inch unit instead. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are included, as is a function that allows you to pair 2 phones at once. Under the bonnet is a 1.6 litre petrol, putting out 180 horsepower. It's hooked up to an 8-speed auto box which sends power through the front wheels. However, for those who want a bit more pep from their saloon, the top-spec GT model gets a much beefier 2.5 litre 4-cylinder, putting out a healthy 290 horsepower. Crucially, it also gets all-wheel drive, meaning it should be a match for many driver-focused rivals.
Speaking of which, this is the car the K5 really needs to beat, the Toyota Camry. One of America's best-selling cars and by far the most popular in this class, the Camry is a well-established car with some very loyal buyers. The Camry offers a more diverse range of powertrain options, available with either a frugal but gutless 4-cylinder, a much better hybrid system, or a torquey V6. It's a lot better than the last generation car, especially with the 301 horsepower V6, which offers silky smooth power delivery and decent performance too. Inside, the Toyota doesn't feel quite as upmarket as the Kia. Of course, it's well made. This is a Toyota after all. But you'll need to stump up for the higher trim levels to get the same level of luxury. Toyota's infotainment system also leaves a little to be desired. It does now come with CarPlay and Android Auto, but the system isn't quite as slick as the one in the K5. There is plenty of room throughout, and luggage space has been greatly improved over the old one thanks to the relocation of the hybrid model's batteries from the boot floor to underneath the rear seats.
As good as the Toyota is though, it's the Kia that wins this duel. It may not be as diverse with just 2 powertrain options, but it looks exciting inside and out and oozes quality and class. It's more desirable than the Camry, and we hope it will convince buyers to stick with saloons for a little while longer.
When you think of a Grand Tourer, your first thought might be of an Aston Martin or Bentley, or maybe even of a front-engine Ferrari. Big, powerful cars that hark back to a golden age of motoring, when driving across Europe at great speeds wasn't just fun, but perhaps quicker than a train or even flying. What you probably don't think of is a Lexus, but they've built one anyway. For the last few years, the LC has been something of a left-field choice, a car for connoisseurs who want something a little different from the European competition and at a lower price. And now, ready for the Riviera, there is this, the LC 500 Convertible. Every bit as handsome as the coupe, this drop-top version is every bit as classy as anything from Jaguar or Aston. It might even be just as good looking, but we'll leave that up to you. Unlike the coupe version, the LC Convertible is available with only one powertrain option, and guess what? It isn't the 3.5-litre hybrid. Instead, the soft-top version's sole engine choice is the fabulous, naturally aspirated 5-litre V8, which makes a perfect noise to enjoy in the open air. Power remains unchanged at 457 bhp, and while that might not sound too impressive when compared with a Bentley Continental or Ferrari Portofino, it'll still hit 62 miles per hour from a standstill in 5 seconds onto a top speed of 168. So while this may be a little tamer than some of the more obvious GTs, it helps to create a rather more relaxed atmosphere. There are plenty of cars for those who want to set a blistering lap time, but the Lexus is designed to calmly but quickly waft along motorways in great comfort and luxury. Speaking of luxury, the cockpit remains a wonderful place to be. As with pretty much all of Lexus's current lineup, the LC's cabin is far from conventional. It's very modern, yet has a sensibly sized screen tucked away within the dash. There are 2 versions available. The entry-level cars start at a little over £92,000, with the Sport Plus model starting at £98,000. For the extra cash, you get these beautiful 21-inch forged wheels, posher leather, a couple of carbon fibre bits, and a Torsen limited slip differential. But while this may be one of the cheapest ways into a convertible GT car, there is another that sneaks in at under 6 figures.
This is the BMW 8 Series, and compared to the Lexus, it seems positively cheap. Prices start at under 90 grand, and for that you get one of the biggest convertibles on the market. Don't go thinking this is a family car though. It's still very much a 2+2, although smaller children should fit in the back without too much trouble. There are a few different engines to choose from, but interestingly, the closest match to the Lexus is the diesel. It may not provide the sort of exotic soundtrack you might crave from a Grand Tourer, but it sends 330 brake horsepower to all four wheels and will propel the big Beamer to 62 from rest in 5.1 seconds. It'll even manage 43 miles per gallon, meaning you'll spend less time at the pumps and more time enjoying some roof-down motoring. The interior is one of BMW's best and is modern and intuitive. This is also one of the best-looking cars in the brand's current range, proving that when it tries, BMW really can make a truly elegant car.
Who are we kidding though? The gorgeous lines of the Lexus are impossible to ignore. And then there's the engine, a proper naturally aspirated V8, a rare thing these days, and something that should be enjoyed while we still have the choice. The BMW may be cheaper and more economical, but a GT isn't really about fuel economy and rationality. The Lexus feels more like a Jaguar or Aston rival, but at BMW money.
Join us again next week on Auto Mundial as we take a look at an all-new EV from Cupra, the Born.